What's up, fight fans? We are back at it with another edition here at Round One Sports TV. I am always your host, Edwin, and we have a great show for you today. Let's break down this David Morale and David Benavidez fight. Also, I want to shed a little bit of light on Naoya Inoue's situation. There was a young man that fought on the undercard there, and he's saying that he was a threat to Naoya Inoue, and let's break down his fight as well. So, David the Monster Benavidez and David Morale just wrapped up their mega showdown. The fight it lived up to the hype in a sense that it had action, suspense, and controversy. Let's break down this fight. Well, as far as the fight itself, both men came out and really showcased their abilities on a world stage. Congratulations to both men. They put it all on the line, both their O's. David Morale really took a shot, a big leap, a step up in competition, and I commend him for that. And David the Monster Benavidez showed why he is who he is. From the early start of the fight, David Morale seemed to be really fast on the trigger. He just had to create better opportunities rather than waiting for David the Monster Benavidez to engage to try to counter him. I felt that David Morale did have a lot of speed, but quickly when you start, I went back and I watched the fight again, and I saw that David the Monster Benavidez's defense was a lot different than David Morale's. Meaning, David Morale still has this Cuban amateurish defense, where that his elbows are more pointed outwards and he's more outward like this, ready to engage. Where that David the Monster Benavidez's defense was really geared towards a more pro style. He was more tight in protecting the body, and he had his fist up to like here, not with the high guard and his elbows pointed out and leaning forward. That's how David Morale is fighting. He was elusive enough to tried to get out of his way, but I felt that David the Monster Benavidez had a high land output. He was landing a lot of punches on David Morale. Then there was a little bit where that it was going back and forth, but I think after the fourth round, David the Monster Benavidez started really taking over in the fight. And then I saw that David Morale got a big shot on David the Monster Benavidez, and it really got his confidence up, and it kind of like got him back into the fight. Where that we got all the way up into like the 10th round, and I started saying to myself, whoever closes the show strong might just win this fight. It was a close fight all the way up into that point. I felt like in the championship rounds, that's where the fight could have been decided, because I felt like, even though I felt like David Morale was behind in the fight going into the 10th, I felt like David the Monster Benavidez was winning the fight. But David Morale could have snuck those last two rounds in and made it a lot closer of a situation. And then there was a knockdown scored. I went back and I watched that knockdown, and I was curious why they never showed us the knockdown. When there was a knockdown occurred in that round, then there was a foul committed in the round where the referee deducted a point. Which, in fact, when I went back and I watched the fight again, that was the right call to make, because the referee took that knockdown away from him because the knockdown was bogus as hell. When I went back and I watched the knockdown, not only did he trip David the Monster Benavidez, but David the Monster Benavidez actually blocks the shot, and it hits the outside of his arm on his shoulder, and it kind of like shoved him down to the ground. A knockdown is awarded no matter what. If you can hit a guy on the shoulder or whatever and knock him down. If you go down, you went down. You see? So I don't think it was a case of like that. But the trip, where that you could see the blatant, where the trip was, that knocks it away because he's tripping you. And your feet got tangled. So by deducting the point, it made things right. And then I felt like David the Monster Benavidez clearly won the 12th round. Yeah, I would like to see a rematch in that fight. I would like to see that fight again. I think both men, I'm telling you, like it was a good fight in the sense of both men were smart. They were smart. They knew the assignment in front of them. They knew that this wasn't the type of fight you just go in there trying to take these uncalculated risks. They were both trying to be measured in their approach. And they both had their moments in the fight. This goes to show you that just jumping up one weight division for both men, and this is their second fight in the division, they're starting to look like their former selves in the lower weight division a little bit now. Even both men said that they need to go back to the drawing board and work on some things, and that they could be better versions of themselves in the new weight division. And then after the fight, I spoke about this on several of my videos to show you guys what goes on and transpires in world title fights. This was for the interim WBC and interim WBA. On stage, David the Monster Benavidez came out with all the belts and the WBA interim that he took off of David Morale, and he handed him back his belt on stage. And I talk about these things in the championship ceremonies, that when you put on those belts in the ring or take a picture with them, you want to take a picture with the belt you beat off the guy. But after the fight, the ceremony between champions, you give him back his belt. That's his. They're going to mail you back a new WBA interim champion. So you see how the respect is given between champions. So I thought that was great. After the fight, it seemed like the promoter had more to say to David the Monster Benavidez than Morale did. I think as competitors, once they shared the ring, a lot of that shit goes out the window. They're trying to sell the fight as well as boost both the fight, because none of this shit is fake. That all that shit talking and everything, it does sell the fights, but both fighters are hyping themselves up and finding motivation and trying to get something out of, oh, you said that? Yeah, now it just motivates me that much more to kick your ass. So it builds for the fight. And then there was another fight on that undercard, and they were saying he was a threat to Naoya Inoue. And I watched him fight last night on the undercard. And Figueroa, I messed up his name. And they were saying that this guy was a threat now to Naoya Inoue. And it just goes to show you, he gets dropped in the fight. He did good. He rebounded in the fight. And he was able to secure the victory. Good body shots, good attack. He's not on Naoya Inoue's level. He's not even on his radar. And it goes to show in the bantamweight division, all the competition down there and how strong the competition is. In fact, we had got into a conversation about Naoya Inoue and how he jumped over the 112-pound weight division from 108 to 115. And there was a lot of back and forth, and I had to really do my homework on that and find out a lot of the situations during the time. And it proves that the bantamweight division is just a gauntlet of fast, athletic, highly skilled boxers. And at one point in time, Naoya Inoue was a young man. He had just won the WBC World Championship at 108. He defended it one time, and he was looking for bigger fights in the future. He once upon a time wanted to fight Chocolatito, and then Chocolatito and Naoya Inoue's camp went back in negotiation, and Chocolatito felt that Naoya Inoue didn't have a big enough name at the time. So Chocolatito went and fought Gutierrez, and he went and fought him. And he told Chocolatito, right? Well, at the time, right, there were a lot of big names at 112, right? Yakanama, man, these Japanese dudes' names. Luca was there. There were a lot of good guys there. Rios was there. Chocolatito was there, right? But when Naoya Inoue was moving up, Chocolatito didn't feel like he had a big name. And I don't blame him. The guy, Naoya Inoue, only had 7 fights at the time, right? So, and then he goes and fights Curious, right? He fights him. And then Chocolatito beats him, right? He tells Naoya Inoue to fight under his undercard in that fight, right? Then even though Naoya Inoue won, they still felt like, when they went back to Chocolatito, they still felt like his name wasn't big enough. Then Chocolatito goes and loses, right? Okay, so after he loses, Naoya Inoue announced Tate to be his next opponent. But then Tate loses to Casamera, right? And then Casamera calls out Naoya Inoue. Then Naoya Inoue and Casamera were going to fight, but then Casamera gets stripped and suspended. Then Naoya Inoue was looking for other opponents. Brandon Figueroa was there, but Brandon Figueroa lost to Stephen Kubo Fulton, right? Then MJ was there, and then MJ loses to Tapales, right? So it goes to show you that none of these guys could keep a winning streak down in the bantamweight division. Everybody was winning, losing. It wasn't that Naoya Inoue ducked anybody. In fact, it was that Naoya Inoue never got his opportunity against those guys. None of those guys could keep winning. The Chocolatito fight, he had 3 opportunities to fight Naoya Inoue and never fought him. And it was like these guys were losing to lesser foes. Chocolatito lost to a guy that was fighting 6 and 8 rounders. And then he had to run it back with him. But yet, he's the guy that Naoya Inoue would lose to? None of them dudes is able to mirror any part of Naoya Inoue's success. It just goes to it turned out that, in fact, they're lucky Naoya Inoue didn't fight them. Because it turned out that the monster is one of the greatest fighters we have in our era today. He is truly a monster. And right now, since Stephen Kubo Fulton beat Brandon Figueroa last night for the 126-pound WBC Championship of the World, it's going to put him in line, perhaps, for another mega showdown versus the Japanese superstar. I thought that Stephen Kubo Fulton put a boxing clinic on Brandon Figueroa last night. Brandon couldn't get nothing off. I saw he was missing a lot of shots. I saw that Stephen Kubo Fulton was a lot slicker on the inside. He was quick on the trigger. And Brandon just looked flat last night. He really never looked like he kicked it into that second gear like he did in the first fight. I thought that Brandon would start off a little slow and Stephen Kubo Fulton would look good in the first half of the fight. But I thought that Brandon would come on strong in the second half of the fight. It never happened. He never kicked it into another gear. And once again, Stephen Kubo Fulton seemed to have Brandon Figueroa's number. This is the second title he took from him in a separate weight division. Congratulations to the American new and the new. He brought that belt back home to Philly. Thank you very much. Bringing one of those belts back home, Stephen Kubo Fulton. My man, that's right, baby. So I'm proud of him. Let's see what he does at the 126-pound weight division and what this means for Naoya Inoue in the future. Is it a potential showdown? Again, another Stephen Kubo Fulton versus Naoya Inoue 2. And will Stephen Kubo Fulton take the fight at that weight? It's interesting. So we know that David Picasso, in fact, seems to be the next man in line for Naoya Inoue's title run. I don't think that Bob Arum and Top Rank is taking MJ's ranking mandatory status seriously, which I don't blame them. Because as we talked about it here on our previous show, MJ fought a guy ranked in the top 50, and his next fighter he fought was like ranked in the top 80. He never really fought any of the number one guys to rightfully deserve that number one spot from the WBA and that mandatory slot that he's yelling. He didn't earn that head up. You know what I'm saying? He didn't beat any of the guys out. He didn't beat Luis Pantera Nari. He didn't beat any of the top guys. He didn't even run it back with Marlon Tapales. And Marlon Tapales is making his way back slowly back up the ranking too as well. So a lot of hardcore fans are not listening to that, oh, he's ducking me shit. A lot of casuals that are coming in, or a lot of people that are not informed with what's going on from the outside looking in. It looks like MJ's mandatory slot and what he's yelling is valid. But the fight world, us hardcore fans, and we really don't see him as a threat in the fight. And we're really not accepting his number one spot, that WBA phony baloney mandatory that they gave him. Although that the WBA really has him as number one spot, we just don't feel like he earned it. What does he have? 13 professional fights, and he's looking for one big payday against Naoya Inoue to retire. He's ducked all the smoke in the division. MJ's the definition of a fighter, making his way through the division, not fighting the top fighters. Yeah, in fact. So, David Picasso is there. Top Rank and Bob Arum seems to be wanting to put the fight in Vegas. I can't wait. And then they're saying he wants 3 fights, and the last fight was the most interesting one out of them all. It was like I didn't even hear David Picasso or MJ. I didn't hear any of that shit. All I heard was, did you say Nick Ball at 126? Is that what you said? That's all I heard. That's all I heard. So that's where I would like my man to see if, because the question came up with whether or not Naoya Inoue is maxed out. I know a lot of fight fans want to see him make the jump, and they're saying it's only 4 pounds, but you got to take into consider where the man came from, 108. That would actually be 6 weight divisions. And out of the 100 years in boxing, there's only been several men to ever conquer 5 weight divisions. We're not in double digits with the men and that have been successful at that. So that goes to show you how hard 5 weight divisions would be. That would actually be Naoya Inoue's 6 weight division. But if he was to win the title in it, he would only get credit for 5. Because seeing the fact that he jumped over 1 weight division, he never entered the weight division, so he doesn't have a belt there. But it doesn't mean that he didn't go buy it. So that is actually would be 6. So I'm wondering if he's maxed out at 122. And if it would be smart for him to go up to 126 and risk his career. A lot of fighters say, would that destroy his legacy as a fighter if he went up to 126 and lost? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think you can ignore the fact of all the things he's done, the records that he's set, at the pace he's been going, what he was able to accomplish in such a short period of time. I don't think that if he went up to 126 and lost, I think that myself and the majority of the boxing world would honor what he tried to do. We would understand that in his own weight division, there was no one that could beat him. In fact, he wiped everybody out so cleanly that the consensus, the majority consensus of the boxing world were urging him to move on to challenge himself. So we're all in agreement that in the bantamweight and the super bantamweight, he was top dog and that he truly cleaned out the weight division. When you can walk in a weight division from a weight jump and challenge the best champion in the division, unify all 4 belts, that speaks to the level that you're on. David the Monster Benavidez, this is his second fight in the weight division, and he's starting to look halfway decent. I don't think he's on the level of fighting the champions of that division, being at the time Arthur and Demetrius Bivol. Those guys seem to be on a different level. And it goes to show, like, these guys at 175, like heavyweight, that performance between David the Monster Benavidez and David Morrell, for them to be throwing that many punches as fast as they were, the rest of the 175-pound weight division must have been watching. They were saying, man, we don't look like that. They can say whatever they want. Oh, no, I look better, bro, because Eagles and you know, no one wants to admit they're average. There's no person or boxer wants to admit they're average. And when they see good shit, they just want to try to, like, break down what, but they're not looking like these guys. That's one weight division. 2 fights. And he ain't competing for a belt. He knew they weren't going to be ready for the champions right away. That's normal boxing situations. Naoya Inoue jumping in, fighting the toughest champion right away, and then the unified world champion after that. That's elite level shit. Naoya Inoue came into the division and he did it backwards. The regular way is he should have fought fighters like Yi Jun Kim, TJ Johanny, and Luis Pantera Nari coming into the division, preparing himself to fight Stephen Kubo Fulton and Marlon Tapales. Instead, he fought Stephen Kubo Fulton first, Marlon Tapales, and now he doesn't have anybody. He wiped everybody out. And somehow they're trying to sell you this MJ guy out of nowhere with 13 fights, ain't proved himself to beat anybody or hold his belt. Somehow, he's the guy that he's ducking. Somehow. I don't know how they came up with this, but yeah, I never felt like MJ ever deserved it. And I can see where Naoya Inoue and his camp are not really accepting his phony baloney mandatory slot that he never proved himself. So it's just the way of the organization trying to bring up their guy so they can be part of the night and cash in. And I think that Ed Hearns is trying to cash in on MJ. I don't really believe that Ed Hearns believes that MJ could beat Naoya Inoue. I don't think he really believes that. I think he's just trying to cash in on his fighter. And as a promoter, a promoter will say anything to sell a fight. Even if it means calling one of the greatest fighters we have today a duck. So, fight fans, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was amazing fights, man. I like the card. I like Isa Pitbull Cruz how he fought. You know, Romas got the victory over Rosario. It was a good night of boxing. I thought that the Brandon Figueroa fight, you know, like I said, he was a little flat. But Stephen Kubo Fulton did show up. He did show up. And the main event kicked off. It didn't disappoint. It was a very strategic fight. I think both men were on their each other's levels, and I think both men showcased a little bit of their ability. Where does the Cuban superstar go from here? I think only up. He still has a big name. He gave a good account of himself, and I expect to see more from both gentlemen. So, fight fans, let me know what you think in the comment. Let me know what you guys think about that phony baloney knockdown. Yo, go check that knockdown out. If you're still in your mind thinking or arguing with your friends, no, he knocked down David the Monster Benavidez, they should have never took the point away. Well, they never should have scored that knockdown in the first place. If you go check it out. Let me know what you guys think about that knockdown. Leave it in the comments below. Let me know who you want to see David the Monster Benavidez fight next, or David Morale. And what do you think about Naoya Inoue's situation? So, fight fans, please give this video a like for me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And like always, I'm on to the next one after this one here at Round 1 Sports Talk. Peace, guys.